Hello, welcome back. My name is Ari, and today, a vlog. So this month, my goal is to read as many of these books on the shelf behind me as I can. This is my TBR shelf, my physical TBR. There's every single book on the shelf is a book that I have not read. The read books go in the other room. I have 4 shelves on here that you can see 3 of them. You can't see the 4th, and then a 5th shelf right here. 4 weeks of the month, we're gonna do a shelf each week. This shelf counts with the bottom shelf, and those are all books that I've purchased this year, and that will be the final week. I am going to read at least 3 books off of each shelf, hopefully more for some of them. Some of them I've got some thick books off of, so I think that'll stop at 3 for those shelves. But this is week 1, so we're going with this top shelf here, and this shelf is fantasy and sci-fi books that I have purchased for myself. So let me take the camera off of its tripod, zoom in a little bit, and I'll talk about the 3 books that I'm going to be reading off of this shelf. Alright, this is that shelf, and if you saw my TBR for this month, you probably know what 3 books that I will be reading off of the shelf because all 3 of them made an appearance in my TBR video. The first book I'm reading is my Buzzwordathon pick for the month, which is a book whose title has a time of day in the title. That was redundant. It's a book with a time of day in the title. And for that, it is Lady Midnight. We got this nice chunker of a book by Cassandra Clare. This is part of the Shadowhunter series, and this is one of the modern Shadowhunter books, which aren't my favorite, which is why I have not read this, but I've started the Last Hours series. So this one is going on the bed as the first book that I'm reading. While we're looking at this, if you guys notice this list of books up there, those are books on my Kindle. I keep it there to remind myself to read those books. Anyway, second book that I'm reading, I am going to finish out the Throne of Glass series and read Kingdom of Ash by Sarah J. Maas, and then get that one off of my list too. We're gonna stick it on my TBR cart right here. And then the third book is something that came up in my Dungeon of Books TBR, and that was a book whose title begins with the letter E. For that, I am going to be reading An Easy Death by Charlene Harris, because this is one of the only books that I have on my TBR that starts with an E. So that is also going over here. So I am going to get started reading Lady Midnight, and I will check back in with you either when I finish this or when I get through like a significant portion of it. Hello, I have finished reading Lady Midnight, and I have thoughts. First off, I put off reading this book specifically because I like the Shadowhunter universe, but I've never really enjoyed the modern day ones. It's always been the Victorian, the ones set in like Victorian England, that I enjoyed the most. And it turns out that maybe I don't dislike the modern ones, I just hate Jason Clary and their whole incesty, creepy ass fucking plotline. I also don't particularly like Alec in Magnus, because I've read those books and I didn't like that either. So maybe it's just like the core original Shadowhunters group that I don't like, because I really did like this. And even though there are appearances by Jason Clary, I still like the romance aspect of this one. It's a very interesting thing. One thing about this is, while it's like a 3-book series, this has like a book plot and then a series plot. And for some reason, I was already familiar with the book plot, and I know I haven't read this before. And what I think what I think had happened is that the Shadowhunters TV show steals the plot from this book, but instead of using the characters from this book, they do it from like Clary's and Annabelle's, no, not Annabelle, what is her name? Isabel's. They do it from like Clary's and Isabel's perspective, which are the original Shadowhunter books, because once I got to like the plot twist, I was like, wait, why do I already know this? I'm so confused. I enjoyed it a lot. I don't really know how to describe it without like spoiling the overall Shadowhunter universe, but basically Shadowhunters are the descendants of like human and angels. They're Nephilim, so half human, half angel, or not half, but part, and they're like the policing force of the underworld, which is like vampires, fairies, werewolves, you know, mystical creatures and stuff like that. Shadowhunters are kind of assholes, which is, you know, not particularly shocking for police officers, or a policing force, and they basically, no one likes them because they're cocky assholes, but we follow like teenagers, and they're kind of bringing out a better side of the Shadowhunters, in like different capacities, where they're much friendlier with the underworld, and much more compassionate than their forefathers. But Shadowhunters are very like rule driven and rule based, and the teenagers always seem to break the rules, which makes for a more interesting story. This follows, oh shit, what are their names? Emma Carstars and Julian Blackthorne, who are two like best friends who are bonded together through Shadowhunter magic, as like sworn protectors of each other, and they, like, her parents were killed 5 years ago, and his parents were killed, and they're kind of, he's had to raise his siblings at 12 years old, and now they're in their like late teens. I guess he would be 17 now if it's been 5 years, and they're like best friends, but you know they're gonna fall in love because, come on, it's romance. They have to, and basically a bunch of killings are happening and they're investigating it. But it's thick, so there's a lot more to it than that. But yeah, you definitely need to read the original Shadowhunters books, which are my least favorite. Anyway, done with this. Yay. It's the second, by the way. I read this in 2 days. Next up is my next chunker. Is it as thick? What is even in here? I am scared that there are like pieces of a book inside my book. I will investigate that later. Hopefully there's not actually like pieces of this missing, but let's see. I think this one was a bit longer. No, turns out that this one just has thicker pages. This one's actually longer. This one was about just under 700 pages, and this is over 900 pages. So this is a real chunker. Let's see how many days it's gonna take me to get through this. I am done with Kingdom of Ash. So I'm not really gonna talk about this because, like I said, this is the 8th book in a series, but I liked it. I liked it a lot. Very, very much enjoyed this. It's fantasy romance. It's trash. Like, it's not trash, but this is not like high fantasy, like no plot holes, huge world building type thing. This is romance. This is about the relationships, and this gives me exactly what I want in a bunch
of relationships. The only relationship I don't like in here is weirdly the main relationship between the two main characters. I think her, in the third book in the series, and I say third because it's technically the fourth book in the series, but it's like the first book is like a 0.5. So in the third book in the series, he treats her atrociously, and he's very abusive both physically and mentally, and that's just not something I can forgive for the sake of a love story. And that's me. Like, I just don't like that trope where it's like, I'm going to abuse you and then realize something about you, and then you must forgive me because I really love you and I only abused you because I didn't know how to process my feelings. Like, not cool, unforgivable in my book. So I really didn't like their relationship, but all the other relationships in here I liked a lot. So very happy where it ended. It's fast paced. I read like 1,500 pages in 3 days. So this one and the book before this were very fast paced. Yay, good. We like to keep things moving, but if you are interested in reading Sarah J. Maas, then I think this series is good. I didn't like book 2, 3, and 4. But I liked the first, like, 0.5 and 1, and I liked 5, 6, 7. So ups and downs, but overall, good. I'm happy. Yay. From there, we're moving to the last book on this shelf that I'm reading, which is An Easy Death by Charlene Harris. This is only like 300 pages, so it's gonna be super short. I have no idea what this is about other than Charlene Harris wrote the True Blood series. There's a helicopter that I'm just talking over, and this is something to do with country western stuff based on the cover. So we'll see. I have finished An Easy Death by Charlene Harris, and this one is okay. The premise for this is insane. Basically, like, just prior to World War I, the president of the United States at the time, which I don't remember who the fuck that was assassinated. And his assassination caused the collapse of the United States as a country, and it divided into like multiple different countries. The 13 original colonies minus Georgia went back to the UK, and then the northern part of the country kind of went to Canada. The southern part of Texas into like Arizona went to Mexico. Then like the upper part of Texas, Oklahoma, New Mexico, and Colorado, or part of Colorado, became a country called Texoma. The Great Plains became New America, and the West went to Russia because instead of the Tsar of Russia being executed by the Bolsheviks, I think is what it is, I think it's what they're called. History, that period of history was not my super strong suit. But he fled to America, and that part of the country became the Holy Russian Empire. Oh, and the Holy Russian Empire has wizards. Because of course they do. This follows our main character, Elizabeth Rose, who is a gunny, or basically like a hired bodyguard, and she has been contracted to escort 2 wizards from Texoma down into Mexico as they track another wizard who is a descendant of Rasputin, and thus has like a specific, they need his blood, basically. They just need his blood. So, yeah, it's a really interesting premise, and for the most part, it was pretty interesting just like watching them like travel and get into gunfights a lot, or mage or wizard magic versus gun fights a lot. It was kind of repetitive in that sense, where it was like travel a little bit, get into a fight, random people die, travel a little get into a fight, people die. So that part was repetitive, but like how each fight went down wasn't necessarily repetitive. As far as that goes, that's good. The problems I had with it was, first off, like the reasoning, the motives of the characters, especially the bad guy characters, never really made sense to me. Like, they had motives, but I was like, why go to these extremes for those motives? Like, that didn't really make any sense to me. And then the ending of this book was just like, Charlene Harris ran out of room to write her ending, and so she like info dumped all of it. And you're like, wait, like you've been having this like same pace throughout the book, and then all of a sudden you're just gonna info dump the entire end of this story. And it was just like, wait, where did this plot line go? So I liked it enough to read the next book in the series and continue the series, but I didn't like it enough to give it anything above 3 stars, if that makes sense. So it was good, not great. A very interesting take on like alternate history. If it sounds really interesting to you, I think it's worth a read, especially because it's so short. But anyway, that is it for this video. I'm done. Next week I will be reading this shelf right here. So make sure you come back next Tuesday to get that video of what I read off of that shelf. As a heads up, that shelf is my book box book shelf. So a lot of book box books on next week's TBR. Don't forget to subscribe if you want to check out the rest of these videos so you don't forget about them, and I'll catch you in the next one. Bye!